Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into a really dark chapter, the life and the horrific crimes of Edmund Kemper III. He's often known as the co-ed killer. But that name, chilling as it is, barely scratches the surface. What we want to do today is look at the documented accounts, the interviews, try to understand how someone goes from, disturbing childhood signs to the kind of acts that just horrified everyone. We're pulling from quite a few sources to try and piece together this really stark picture of how darkness like this can, begin and escalate.
A deeply disturbing picture.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Edmund Kemper wasn't just a serial killer. He was also a necrophile, responsible for just brutal, multiple murders. And what's really unsettling, I think, is how his physical presence, he was nearly 7 feet tall, 300 pounds. It wasn't just a feature, it was a weapon.
Right.
And combine that with this chillingly high intellect. He scored, 140 on IQ tests. It allowed him to plan meticulously, to manipulate people. His size just amplified the terror. It's this awful combination of mind and body, all focused on destruction.
And those signs, that unsettling combination you mentioned, they started incredibly early, didn't they? He's born December 18th, 1948, Burbank, California. Middle child, older and younger sister. His parents, Edmund Kemper II, a WWII vet, and Clarnell. The sources, they consistently call their marriage loveless and damaging. That's a bleak start.
It really is.
There's this quote from his father about living with Clarnell. It's just chilling. He said, "Suicide missions in wartime and the later atomic bomb testings were nothing compared to living with Clarnell."
Wow.
That paints a pretty stark picture of the home environment. What do you say?
Absolutely. That quote really tells you a lot about the kind of atmosphere Edmund grew up in. Clarnell, from everything we know, was relentlessly abusive, verbally, emotionally, and especially towards Edmund. She seemed to have this constant need to belittle him. There was this bizarre fear she had that if she coddled him, as she put it, she'd somehow turn him gay.
That's deeply disturbing.
It is. And it got much worse when his father left in 1957. He basically abandoned the kids, leaving Edmund in particular completely under her control. Her abuse, emotional, even physical, was directed right at him. Constant insults, telling him he'd never going to be anything, that no woman would ever love him. It wasn't just hurtful. It was like she was deliberately building this immense hatred inside him, a hatred that, we know where it led.
And it didn't take long for that damage to show itself in his behavior, right? Really disturbing stuff early on. The sources talk about dark fantasies relating to sexuality and death from a young age. What does that typically suggest, those kinds of early fantasies?
Well, when you see that kind of thing early on, it often points to these underlying themes, taking root themes of control, power, objectification. For Kemper, it started with things like decapitating his sister's dolls. Then, in second grade, there was this really alarming incident where he stalked his teacher.
Stalked her? With what?
With his father's bayonet. He followed her home. Then there were these twisted games he played with his sisters. The gas chamber game, he'd blindfold them, tie them up, pretend he was dying in agony. It really shows this early fascination with power, with others suffering, a desire for, total control.
There's also that magic show incident. He was only 8 or 9, I think. He talked about seeing a magician do the chopping head off trick with a, quote, beautiful girl. And he described being excited by it, saying it introduced him to the idea of control, specifically chopping off a pretty girl's head. He remembered that really vividly later. That feels significant.
Extremely significant. It's a formative memory, clearly linking control, violence, and attractiveness in his mind from a very young age.
And then, of course, the animal cruelty. That's always a huge red flag, isn't it? At 10, burying the family cat alive. Then at 13, killing another cat with a knife. Also burying it. These aren't just, childhood pranks. They're serious precursors.
Absolutely classic indicators. And this pattern continued when he went to live with his grandparents later on. His grandfather gave him a .22 rifle, supposedly for, shooting rabbits and gophers. But his grandmother, she got really worried. She saw this rage in him when he was shooting birds, other animals. She actually started hiding a handgun they owned because she was afraid he might take it. She sensed something was deeply wrong, even if she couldn't fully grasp what.
And her fears were tragically spot on. August 27, 1964. That's the day everything changed, wasn't it? The first murders. He was only 15. He and his grandmother were arguing in the kitchen. He just walked over, got that rifle. Oh, wait, no, it was the handgun she was hiding, wasn't it?
Yes, the handgun she feared he'd use.
He shot her 3 times in the head while she was sitting right there at the table. And then his grandfather comes home just moments later. Before the poor man could even get inside, Edmund shot him in the head too. His explanation to the police later was just cold. He said he did it to see what it felt like. And he claimed he shot his grandfather so he wouldn't have to see his wife dead. After all that, he called his mother,
who told him, quite calmly apparently, to call the police, which he did.
Unbelievable. So what happened then? He's 15. He's just killed his grandparents.
He was transferred to the California Youth Authority.
Oh.
A court psychiatrist diagnosed him as paranoid and psychotic, which points to, a serious break from reality. But at the same time, they tested his IQ, scored a 136, later 140. That high score definitely boosted his ego, maybe even helped him learn how to manipulate the system later.
Yeah.
He was committed to a maximum security facility for the mentally ill.
Okay, maximum security. But then he gets out.
That's the really baffling part, and honestly a critical failure. He was released in 1969 after just 5 years. He was only 21. His juvenile record was wiped clean. The reason given was that he was doing well. He was considered low risk. Why? Because he'd learned how to tell the probation psychologists exactly what they wanted to hear. He manipulated them.
So his intelligence actually worked against the system.
Precisely. It became a tool for deception. A high IQ in a psychopath isn't a buffer. It's often an amplifier for their ability to exploit weaknesses in the system.
So he's released, still only 21, and where does he go? Despite psychiatric advice.
Right back to live with his mother in Santa Cruz.
Unbelievable. So what did he do then? Try to build a normal life?
He tried, sort of. Had different jobs, went to community college for a bit, but he had this one really strong desire. He wanted to be a police officer, a state trooper.
And that didn't happen.
No. He was rejected because he was too tall. Over the maximum height limit, he was 6'9", 300 pounds. That rejection really seemed to sting. He started hanging out with actual troopers, got the nickname Big Ed, spent time at their bar, trying to be part of that world. He even bought a motorcycle to, act like a cop. Then he got injured, sold the bike, and bought a car that looked a lot like an unmarked police car.
Okay, so he's frustrated, fixated on this authority he can't have.
Exactly. And that frustration, that desire for authority, it twists. If he couldn't be the authority, he'd exert control in another way, a horrifying way. He started picking up female hitchhikers. He got good at it, learned how to seem trustworthy, non-threatening despite his size. August 1972. That's when the first 2 known victims, the ones linked to the co-ed killer name, disappeared. Fresno State students, Marianne Pesch and Anita Lachesa.
Hitchhiking, what happened to them?
It was brutal. Marianne's head was eventually found in a wooded area. Anita's remains, they were never found. Kemper later confessed. He stabbed and killed Anita, stabbed Marianne, cut her throat. Then he took their bodies back to his apartment, dismembered them, removing heads and hands, and he engaged in sexual acts with the corpses. Necrophilia.
Oh, God. So the violence escalated incredibly fast after hhis release.
And it became deeply sexualized, combined with this mutilation aspect. It's a horrifying progression.
And it didn't stop there. September 1972. Aiko Koo, just 15 years old.
Yes. She apparently realized the danger partway through the ride, tried to escape. He subdued her, taped her mouth, tried to suffocate her, eventually strangled her with her own scarf, then raped her. And the detail after that is just chillingly audacious.
What did he do?
He put her body in the trunk of his car and drove to that bar where the cops hung out, had a drink among them. With her body in the car, it's like this perverse challenge, this proximity to the authority he craved but was denied. Then later, he dismembered her. He drove around with her head and hands in a bag for a day before getting rid of them. That decapitation theme again, right back from the Magic Show fantasy.
Those are methodical, calculated. Yeah. And the connection to his mother starts becoming clearer too, right? With the next victim.
Yes, January 1973. Cindy Shao, another hitchhiker. He shot her, he hid her body in his room for a time, dismembered it, threw most of the parts into the ocean. But her head, he buried it in his mother's backyard, positioned so it was facing her bedroom window. His reasoning. His mother always wanted people to look up to her.
That is just pure twisted symbolism. The resentment is palpable.
Deeply ingrained resentment. And it seems linked to his killings now because the next ones happened right after a big fight with her.
February 1973. Rosalind Thorpe and Alice Liu, students.
Right. Big fight with Clarnell. He goes out, uses her campus parking sticker to seem legitimate, picks them up, shoots them both in his car. Then again, decapitation, dismemberment, disposal in different places. By this point, Santa Cruz was terrified. You had Kemper, but also John Frazier, Herbert Mullins, other killers operating around the same time. The press started calling it the murder capital of the world. Imagine living there then.
Just constant fear, and it all leads up to this final, absolutely horrific climax involving his mother.
Good Friday, April 1973. It started again with a fight between him and Clarnell. Later that night, while she was sleeping, he went into her room with a claw hammer and beat her to death. The culmination of decades of that abuse and festering hatred.
Yeah.
Then the dismemberment. He removed her head, sexually assaulted
It's
it.
almost impossible to comprehend.
And then the ultimate desecration. He put her head on the fireplace mantle, used it as a dartboard. He even tried to put her tongue and larynx down the garbage disposal. Complained later it didn't work properly. It's just grotesque, ritualistic rage.
And it wasn't even over then, was it?
No. Immediately after killing his mother, he called her friend, Sally Hallett, invited her over for dinner. When she arrived, he strangled her, hid her body, later had sex with her corpse too. The next day, he just took Sally's car and drove. Headed east, ended up in Colorado.
Fleeing. But then he calls the police on himself.
He does. April 23rd. Calls Santa Cruz PD from a phone booth in Colorado, confesses. And here's another twist. They didn't believe him at first.
Why not?
Because they knew him. He was Big Ed, the guy who hung out at their bar, friendly, seemed harmless. But he was persistent, gave them details only the killer would know, eventually led them to where he disposed of remains. You can imagine the shock for those officers, realizing the monster was someone they knew, someone they joked with.
So arrest at 24, confessed to 8 murders in total. The 6 students, his mother, and her friend Sally.
That's right. The trial was in October 73. Found guilty on all 8 counts of first-degree murder by November. He got 8 concurrent life sentences. He's still incarcerated today at the California Medical Facility.
There's that quote from the Cosmopolitan interview. It just sums up the horror inside his head, doesn't it? They asked how he felt seeing a pretty girl after he killed his mother. And he said,
"One side of me says I'd like to talk to her, date her. The other side says I wonder how her head would look on a stick."
Chilling. Just the absolute duality. He was denied parole back in 2017, apparently tried to recant his confession then.
Yeah, claimed he was immature when he confessed. It didn't work, obviously. There's also been talk of cannibalism over the years, but the sources seem conflicted. No solid proof, and Kemper himself gave different stories. And bizarrely, in prison, reports say he's taught computer science, answers fan mail, maintaining that sort of oddly normal facade.
It's just such a disturbing story from beginning to end.
It truly is. And it highlights the tragic waste, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Such a high intellect, twisted into something so destructive, so depraved. When you look at the whole picture, Kemper's life is just this stark, horrifying lesson. It screams about the importance of recognizing those patterns early. The animal abuse, the violent fantasies, those were clear red flags, massive red flags demanding serious intervention.
You have to wonder about the missed opportunities, especially in his childhood and teens. They were preludes to the absolute tragedy that followed.
Right. So thinking about all this, what does it mean for us, for you listening? When you trace this path, from the abuse and those early dark signs, right through to the manipulation and the monstrous acts, it really makes you ask some hard questions, doesn't it? Like, how does a system, even after identifying someone as paranoid and psychotic, end up releasing them back into the world?
A critical question. And could anything have been done differently? Earlier interventions, different support structures, what could have possibly changed that trajectory? And maybe the biggest question is, what does a case like this teach us about the potential for darkness within human nature, about recognizing the signs, understanding where it comes from? It's a lot to take in.
It definitely leaves you with a lot to think about regarding vigilance, intervention, and the complexities of the human psyche.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into what is undeniably a very difficult and disturbing subject. We hope it gives you, well, something to reflect on.